Good morning. Okay, welcome everyone to the East San Joaquin Water Quality Coalition meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to be about 45 minutes today and going over all the information you need to know for your membership. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Katie Diemel. I work here at the East San Joaquin Water Quality Coalition and also the Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. So we're going to kind of go over a little bit about what East San Joaquin is and what it does for you. We first had to have a little bit of a timeline. The Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program was started in about 2003 from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. And the East San Joaquin was formed in about 2004. So that's the first year that membership dues were started to be paid. We're a nonprofit, we're a 501c5. We work totally on behalf of you, the members, to keep costs as low as possible, make your compliance as easy as possible. You have a great team between the county farm bureaus, our technical consultants at MLJ, and a legal consultant that work all to save costs by sharing staff with different organizations. So a little bit more, our general order, the kind of governing document that the Regional Water Board puts together, was changed in 2012. And that took it from purely a surface water program to also a groundwater program. So likely a lot of you became members after 2012. From about 2012 to 2015, a lot of members joined. There was no back dues. After that, the East San Joaquin Board put in a back dues policy to make sure that everyone was paying on an even playing field so that everyone was paying the same amount. So original members, new members, all paid at the same rate for the establishment of the program. 2013 was the first year you saw requirements in the farm evaluation. Following that, we had the nitrogen report. And in 2018, there was another big update to our general order from the Regional Water Board that also required some new paperwork or some changes to the paperwork you'd been submitting. So that's the first irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary report and worksheet that you saw was about 2018. Since then, a lot of the requirements have really remained the same for you, which is really, really nice. So your board of directors is made up of 11 growers. We've got PCAs, agronomists, farm bureau, people from the industry that represent you. They meet multiple times a year. They stay on top of issues and they're making decisions, but they're donating their time to represent you. So we have several representatives from Stanislaus County that work on behalf of you. I did see John here earlier today, so we do have some board members around. They deserve a lot of credit. They work really hard to have innovative ways to keep your dues very, very low and represent you really, really in a strong way to the Regional Water Board. So a little bit about our staff. You probably know this already, but you share staff with the county farm bureaus in Stanislaus, Merced, and Madera County Farm Bureau. So if you go in and you need help in your paperwork, whatever county you're in, you can probably make an appointment at the county farm bureau to have help on your paperwork. It's a great way, and it's one way that we've been able to save a lot of money is by sharing some of these staff people to work on Water Coalition and your Farm Bureau issues. Additionally, we have a great technical consultant team at MLJ Environmental. They do all of our reporting, they do our water sampling, our monitoring, they do our report writing, but they do a fantastic job between our technical work and also our correspondence with the water board. So we've got a great team there. And the last leg of our team is Tess Denham, and she's with Conway and Soares legal team, and they do a fantastic job on all of our legal matters and a lot of representation to the water board as well. So the value of your membership, the number one reason people are a member of our organization is because it's significantly cheaper. So we work really hard to keep your costs as low as possible and make your requirements as easy as possible. However, I would say really the biggest reason is because we have anonymous reporting. And this has been a big battle, a long battle over our 20-year history. This is the thing that the environmental groups challenge the most is this anonymous reporting piece. So your data is not directly reported to the Regional Water Board in association with your name. So this is 100% our biggest fight. It's something that we refuse to give up and refuse to compromise on. If you were to have an individual permit with the Regional Water Board, your information would go directly to the water board, so you wouldn't have that layer of anonymous reporting. So it's a really critical piece to the Water Coalition and what we do for you. And as far as cost savings, if you were to have an individual permit with the water board, it's estimated to cost about 25 times more than your membership with the East San Joaquin. So there's definitely some efficiencies that have been built into our group model. Next are just your requirements as a member. So today you're fulfilling one of your requirements. You have to attend one yearly annual meeting. So today takes care of that. We're also filming today, so this will be on the website. So if you have any questions or you want to look back, review the meeting again, it will be available on the portal here in coming weeks. The other things you have to do is have a signed participation agreement. You already have that probably in your file. It's been signed many years ago. You have your yearly member dues. They stayed at $5.50 an acre this year, which has been great. We've been able to hold dues the same for several years. You do not have a farm evaluation due this year, but your farm evaluation is due every 5 years. So 2026 will be your next farm evaluation survey. Probably the most important thing in your packet is that irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary report. It's due on March 1st. You'll want to make sure that's completed and comes back into us. You'll also have your worksheet, your irrigation and nitrogen management plan worksheet, and that's in your packet. You'll want to complete that and keep it on file. And then the last requirements here are the sediment and erosion control plan, which only applies to certain growers. You also, if you are along a waterway, you may be required to complete a surface water management plan implementation report. And that happens for growers that are along waterways, so you may or may not be targeted there. And lastly is if you are an outlier, you'll have a few additional requirements. So the packet, you get your packet every year about November. There's 2 ways you might get your packet. For those who have selected to get it online, you'll get an email. So you'll want to check your email for early November, late October if you do not have your packet, or give us a call and we can email that back to you. You can also log into your portal at any time, and there is a link to the complete packet, or you can complete your requirements within the portal if you log in. Additionally, for those who prefer mail, we totally understand, and we provide you a mailed packet every year. So if you have not gotten your packet, definitely let us know and we can make sure we get that out to you. So your membership dues, this slide has some information about kind of the percentages of what your dues go to. However, our biggest cost is surface water, and we're going to be talking a lot about pyrethroids today and pyrethroids in our waterways because that's our #1 driving cost, is that we continue to have exceedances. However, the East San Joaquin board's been really creative, they've been innovative, and they've worked really hard to find reductions to keep dues as low as possible. So they've continued to be at $5.50 an acre for several years now, and it's stayed the same this year. $50 membership fee has been the same since the beginning. The only other thing that you'll see on your invoice is the lines for the nitrate control program. These have been on the invoices for Modesto, Turlock, and Chowchilla for about 4 years now. And for the first time, they're showing up for Merced and Madera. So if you have some new parcels or you have parcels in Merced and Madera, you're probably seeing the first time that nitrate control program fee on your invoice. Oh, the last thing I need to say about this slide is every year in May, we send out a May acreage update form. It comes about the 1st of May. On that form, you want to make sure you make any corrections to your acreage. So if you add a parcel, you need to take a parcel off. You're reducing acreage, you're adding acreage, you're planting more. All of that needs to be captured by about June 1st, really up until July 1st, we can make those changes. After that, we submit the list to the Regional Water Board, and that becomes our static acreage, and that is the number that you are billed on in the following year. And so we can't make any adjustments after that. So please review your acreage. You can do it now. You can make any corrections now for next year. And when you get that form, please make sure that everything is correct and submit any changes back to us. Okay, the farm evaluation survey, this is a little bit about your requirements. You've seen this one before. It's all your management practices. There is not one due this year. It's due every 5 years, but this will be due in 2026. And this captures your information about pesticide use, well information, sediment practices. So this will come next year. Of course, the big one, the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan Summary Report. This is a 3-page document in your packet, or you can complete it online. This one is due also on March 1st, so you have a little bit of time, but it'll sneak up on you. So make sure you get this one completed. This is kind of one of our biggest reports. It's one of the ones that Water Board holds most dear and is most important. There's 2 things you should know. If you complete this online for the first time, you'll get a $25 credit for next year. So if you want to try out the portal and you want to utilize this new technology and to use this, there's a little bit of an incentive to do so. You can also submit it on paper. but please do get your nitrogen report. This captures kind of your practices around irrigation and nitrogen use, but also your numbers as far as how much nitrogen is applied per acre and yield information per acre. If you have any questions, give us a call anytime. Come see us. We can help you complete this report. PCAs are also really, really valuable at helping you complete this report as well. Alongside that is the worksheet. So this is what you plan on doing in the next year. So your summary report is really looking at the year prior. So you're working on your 2024 nitrogen report. Your worksheet is looking at what you're going to do in 2025. So it's a lot of the same information, but it's your plan, what you plan to do in your fertilizer, kind of your potential yield, those kinds of information are going to get captured on this form. It stays on farm. It does not need to come back into us. The management practice implementation report for surface water. So this is for those that fall along a creek, a waterway, that's in one of those management plans that Jen's going to talk about a little bit further with pyrethroids. We come out, we do individual surveys with our members, so we'll make a time that's convenient for you. We want to meet with you, your PCA, your applicator, and talk about the management practices that are happening around pesticide application, especially close to waterways, because we're continuing to see small amounts of pyrethroids that are coming up in our waterways, and that's, again, our biggest cost is associated with our sampling, and the sampling for pyrethroids is very expensive, and it's happening at really, really small levels. Also, if you've ever been declared an outlier, you'll see this in your packet. It's kind of the last line on your checklist. You can look at your nitrogen evaluation information in the end of your packet. This will have your past 3 years worth of data, your yield information, and also your nitrogen use information. So you want to check your packet when you get that information and make sure that everything is accurate. Occasionally what we find is people that have been declared outliers have had a mistake in their paperwork. They accidentally reported their total amount of fertilizer total and not just their total amount of nitrogen. So please check that your information is correct. But if you fall in the outlier category, which means that you're applying more nitrogen than those around you, you'll want to make sure that you complete the annual requirement, which is a once yearly meeting that's on the website, and it's crop-specific meetings. So these are already on the website. You can watch them anytime, and you'll want to complete the survey and get it back into us. So these are those meetings. I know we have pistachios, walnuts, almonds. I think we have citrus, tomatoes, corn silage already up. We have a slew of new videos coming out this year, so you can complete this requirement at any time, and then you'll want to make sure you complete and return that survey back into us. Okay, this is the slide I get the most questions on, and everyone takes pictures of this one. So if you are self-certified to complete your irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary report, you've probably gone through one of the in-person classes. They now have those classes online. So you can go online anytime to CDFA and watch these courses, get your self-certification completed. If you're already self-certified, you need to continue to have your continuing education, and that's 1 hour per year or 3 hours over 3 years to continue that self-certification. So if you go to the link on the bottom site, they have a whole bunch of courses that are preloaded that you can watch at any time to get those hours. If you have any questions about where you're at in your self-certification, this information or these websites will take you to the person that could also help you track your information. So this is a really important slide. They're also linked on our website, but if you have any questions about self-certification, this is the place to go. And with that, I'm going to have Ms. Jen come up.
Hi, my name is Jen Glenn. I'm with MLGI Environmental. I'm your technical consultant. The first thing I'm here to talk to you about today is A/R acceptable ranges. This is something that we went over last year. However, we thought it would be good to kind of repeat the information so that you're getting more familiar with it. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview. What are A/R ranges? Where do they come from? How have they been developed? How are they being utilized? And how is it going to be applied? What does it mean if your fields are above the A/R range? So first, the what and where. It's a new metric to evaluate nitrogen efficiency. So we're looking at your nitrogen applied, that's the A, over your nitrogen removed, that's the R. This is coming from your INMP summary data report. This is a requirement from the order, from the new order revisions in 2018. Since then, the Central Valley Irrigated Lands Coalitions have been working together, and in 2024, I've been working to develop these A/R ranges. So just to look at the timeline again, 2018, that's when the new order requirements were passed. For the next few years after that, the coalitions and commodity groups worked together to figure out a plan of how they were going to meet these requirements. In 2023, they submitted a work plan saying this is what we're going to do. And then the plan was that in 2024, the A over R ranges would be developed, and then in fall 2024, they would be implemented. However, there was a little bit of delay in that timing. So what ended up happening is that those A over R ranges weren't developed until the end of last year, so fall, winter 2024. And now the plan is to roll them out in fall of 2025. So you will be seeing this year in your upcoming member packets in fall, winter 2025. How are these ranges developed? So they're being calculated for each crop. The idea is that it is based on existing data. Most of this is coming from growers' INMP summary reports. It's coming from your data. There was an assessment of Central Valley crops, and there was some research and looking into supported agronomic studies to kind of help come up with what these numbers should be. The idea, again, is that it's based on realistic information. It's coming from growers. It's looking across multiple years, a broad spectrum of growing conditions to try to get numbers that are attainable and realistic. So how is it going to be applied? This is a metric for nitrogen efficiency. It's going to be really similar to the outlier threshold that you're used to seeing. There's one to two main differences between that outlier threshold and these A over R ranges. The outlier threshold changed every year because it had to do with what everyone in the area was doing. This A over R value will be static, and it will remain the same for 5 years. At every 5 years, there will be the opportunity to reassess and decide if that value needs to be adjusted, but for 5 years at a time, those values will remain the same. So what is that going to look like in your packets? You should be used to seeing this curve, right? This is your 3-year A over R curve. You can see the little dots are where your parcel or parcels would fall along the curve, and you have that dotted outlier threshold. Well, now we're going to take that threshold line away and instead replace it with the A over R threshold instead. So it's going to seem really similar to you. What does it mean if your fields are above this range? This is a tool for coalition outreach efforts. So there's going to be multiple different factors in mind to determine who gets targeted for outreach. And it's going to be more than just if you are above that A over R threshold. There's other things that are being taken into account, such as what crop you grow and the area that you live in. If you are selected for outreach, it'll mean some of those additional requirements that Katie was talking about earlier. Well, you'll probably have to watch a crop-specific video and fill out a survey. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it back to Katie to talk about CV salts.
We're going to talk a little bit about CV salts. So this is obviously a Central Valley-wide program that a lot of different stakeholders are participating in, and we're required to participate in as a third-party water coalition. So it has kind of a goal of sustainable or long-term sustainability for salts in groundwater and coming up with some solutions to salinity in the Central Valley. Participating in this group is not just ag, but also municipalities, so your cities, anybody who holds a waste discharge permit. So any of your food processors, wineries, kind of industry is all participating in this program. So the big focus in the last several years has not surprisingly been nitrates, and this is really where that new nitrate control program came from. So you've noticed on your invoice for the last several years, and we've talked through this program fairly extensively, but the first priority was, of course, Chowchilla, Modesto, and Turlock. And so the two basins in our area up here in Modesto and Turlock were covered under the Valley Water Collaborative, and Chowchilla was actually managed independently in a group in Madera County, and they've also done a wonderful job for our growers. This year we have 2 new basins that have joined in our area, Merced and Madera, also being managed by the Valley Water Collaborative. And so this is all a whole program built around drinking water and clean drinking water for those wells that are testing above the drinking water standard for nitrate. So the Central Valley Water Board, they're really regulating nitrogen use from human activities, and so the whole program buys us 35 years to get into compliance with our discharge of nitrate in groundwater, which is something that all the dischargers in the Central Valley need. And so we agreed to participate in this nitrate control program to get us that time and make sure that people have the clean drinking water. So there's two kind of components to this nitrate control program. One is that growers or users of domestic wells can have free water testing done. If they come back above that minimum level, then they also can receive free drinking water deliveries. So there's a couple things that have been happening while we've been paying into these groups. So in Turlock, Modesto, and Chowchilla, the main big initial plan, the Management Zone Implementation Plan, we call it the MZIP, has already been completed. We're kind of in the initial phases in both Madera and Merced to get this plan underway and taking place. And this is sort of examples of some of the numbers that have come back in these drinking water, these different drinking water programs. I think this was from Modesto and Turlock, but it had about, I think it's about 1,200 samples done, or 1,200 applications received. Close to, I'm sorry, I can't see the number, about 650, I believe, wells sampled, and then about 500 actually received bottled water from those wells that have been sampled. So some of the key programs or key elements to this program is, of course, the water sampling and water delivery for those over, but it's also working on identifying the different causes, the different contributions, and how to get back to that sustainable level. So it's been a really comprehensive plan. It has a lot of partners. I would say probably the biggest win from this program is that it's not just irrigated ag bearing the cost. Also participating in this program is dairy, bovine. You're seeing poultry in this program, cities, municipalities. So in each of these areas, other dischargers are also paying a portion of this program. So it does seem like a win for irrigated ag that this is not entirely on the backs of our growers. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jen for the last segment here.
All right, I'm back. This time I'm going to give you your surface water and groundwater technical update. So we're going to start with groundwater. The Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program has a lot of groundwater requirements. One of them is the GAR, or the Groundwater Assessment Report. It's a big report we have to write every 5 years. It talks about trends. It talks about what's going on in groundwater today. We have to pull a lot of data together to put this report together. Secondly, we have our Groundwater Quality Trend Monitoring Program, GQTM. This is where we monitor wells annually. We're looking at nitrate in wells. We have our INMPs. That's all part of the groundwater requirements. As a reminder, those are due March 1st. And finally, we have our Groundwater Quality Management Plan. That's the coalition's plan for how they're going to work on groundwater quality in the area. It's looking at grower practices, it's looking at the data that we have, and it kind of outlines what the coalition is doing. I'm going to focus on the GQTM program. So the purpose of this program is looking at groundwater data, groundwater quality. We're looking long-term at a regional scale. So we're looking to see what the impacts of irrigated agricultural practices are on groundwater quality. We do this by establishing a well network. So we monitor 39 wells annually for nitrate. 27 of those are drinking water wells, 12 of those are observation wells. And then on top of that annual nitrate requirement, every 5 years we're required to monitor for a few other constituents as well. Things like total dissolved solids, potassium, chloride, sulfate, things like that. So I'm not sure how clear this is, but this is a map of your well network. Each of these red dots represents one well. You can see we're really trying to get a good representation across the coalition. And now let's look at your results for 2024. Each of the dots, the red and purple dots, mean that your nitrate results are greater than the maximum contaminant level, which is 10 milligrams per liter of nitrate as in. So if that's a domestic well, if that's a drinking water well, it is not considered safe for consumption. So let's zoom in a little bit and see some of the wells in the area. Again, any of those red and purple circles, if those are drinking water wells, they're not considered safe for human consumption. The groundwater program ties into this Central Valley Groundwater Monitoring Collaborative. It's this group of 10 different coalitions that have gotten together and decided to collaborate on some of these requirements. The idea is that it'll be more cost-effective, efficient, and we can share resources. So I mentioned the coalition has a well network, 39 wells. Together with all of these coalitions, we now have a well network of 279 wells. So this really gives us, one of the benefits is access to better data, so we have a better understanding of what's going on in the area. Because again, the goal of this program is to look at a regional scale. Additionally, it helps streamline our reporting requirements. So that GAR report that I mentioned, the groundwater assessment report that we have to write every 5 years, rather than each of these 10 coalitions writing their own report, they get together and just write one report and submit it on behalf of all of them. So again, we're really looking for ways to find efficiencies to share the workload. It also builds into compliance with CV salts. So some of the benefits of being a part of this collaborative. And then here's a map of the CVGMC. Again, to give you an idea of like the area that it is covering in the Central Valley. So you can see it really does cover a large part of the Central Valley, which is great because we're looking at trends at the regional level. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna switch over to surface water. Our surface water monitoring program requires us to monitor every month. We've divided the coalition into 6 different zones. Each of those zones has one core site. At that core site, we have to monitor, again, every month, for all of the constituents that are required in the order. We also have represented sites. Represented sites, we only have to do monitoring at for known water quality issues. So if we know that there's an issue in an area, that's what we go out and monitor at those represented sites for. Again, we're monitoring once a month. And here are some of the things that we're monitoring for. We're doing field measurements. So we're looking at pH, we're looking at dissolved oxygen, we're looking at flow. We're looking for nutrients. We're looking for nitrate, ammonia, phosphorus. We're looking for total organic carbon, dissolved organic carbon. Sometimes we're looking for metals, usually copper. We're also looking for pesticides. The way we determine how to monitor for pesticides is a little bit different. What we do is we look at pesticide use reports, so pesticide application data, and then we look at aquatic health and human health thresholds. We kind of layer them together, and that tells us what pesticides we should be monitoring and what time of year we need to monitor for them. Additionally, we do water quality, water column toxicity. So we take water samples and we see what's happening to the organisms that are living in that water because of the water quality. So things like algae and water fleas. How are they doing? Are they able to grow? Are they able to survive? Here's another map. This is the coalition, and each of these dots represents one of the monitoring sites. The different colors represent the different zones. Again, we've divided up into 6 different zones. And then looking a little closer at this area, you can see really represented by sites in zones 1, 2, and 3. So we have quite a lot of sites in this area. So what else some of the things that we're finding? So thinking about pesticides that we see in 2024. So looking at the chemical name that we find and then tracing it back to like common product names. I kind of have a few up here. It's a little bit hard for me to read them. But for herbicides, we have like Shark, Roundup, Goal, Prowl. For, I feel like I can't read this well. We have items like Bravo Weather, Nordex, Oberon. I'm trying to remember some of them off the top of my head, but hopefully you can read these. And then we have pyrethroids. We are required to monitor for 6 different pyrethroids. Again, on the left side, we have the name of that chemical, that active ingredient. It's the bifenthrin, cyfluthrin, those ones. And on the right side, you can see common product names that use that chemical ingredient. So why do we have this focus on pyrethroids? Well, in 2019, there were new requirements, again, that required us to monitor for each of these 6 pyrethroids. The thing with pyrethroids is that we can detect them at really, really, really small quantities. The additional thing is that rather than looking at each of these pyrethroids individually and comparing it to a water quality trigger limit where we determine if we're above or below the allowed threshold, we do an additive calculation, which means we combined each of those 6 results together, and then we look to determine if there's an exceedance or not. So it really adds up. So if we have an exceedance, if we have more than one exceedance in a 3-year period, what happens is we trigger a management plan. A management plan is to look at the impact of agricultural management practices on water quality. And what it really means is that we have to do monitoring more frequently at sites. We have to monitor, and we have to monitor at additional sites. So essentially, we have to do more monitoring. What a management plan might mean for you, if you're in an area where there is a management plan, specifically for pyrethroids, and you're along a waterway or a creek, you might be targeted for outreach. This means you might have a one-on-one visit with your PCA and with someone from the Farm Bureau like Wayne Zipser, and you'll be asked to fill out a survey. What it means for us is that we have to keep doing this additional monitoring until we're able to prove that we have improvements in the water quality. So let's kind of walk through the history of pyrethroids. So again, that order requirement 2019, we started really monitoring in 2020. When we first started monitoring, we're monitoring at 9 sites. By the end of that year, we had 11 pyrethroid exceedances, which meant we had 5 management plans. That means that we have to do more monitoring. We have to monitor at more sites where we found more exceedances that triggered more management plans. That meant we had to do more monitoring at more sites where we found more exceedances and we have more management plans. So that brings us to this past year where you can see we were monitoring each of these bars on the graph represents an exceedance. So I believe we had 26 pyrethroid exceedances last year, and by the end of the year, 32 sites are now in management plans. So we started out monitoring at 9 sites. By the end of that first year, 5 sites in management plans. Now we're up to 32 sites in management plans for pyrethroids. It's a lot of monitoring. So again, if we look, kind of tracking over time, right? You can see each of these, it's growing every year, the number of sites that we're monitoring for, the percentage of those that are in management plans. However, there's a big drop that we see in 2024. And I just told you that we have 32 sites that are in management plans. So why are we monitoring at less sites in 2024 than we were in 2023? And the reason for that is that the coalition was able to work out a deal with the regional board. They came to the regional board and said, look, we have a lot of sites in management plans, and the amount of monitoring that would be required is too much of a burden. We need to come up with a different strategy of how we can do this. And we were able to get a deal where we're able to stagger the monitoring that we have to do. So it kind of reset a little bit, right, back in 2024. But now every year from then on, we have to add 3 more sites that are in those management plans to monitoring. So those numbers of sites are going to start ticking back up. And unless we can show that we have improvements in some of those other sites and we're able to remove them from management plans, the number of sites that we're going to have to monitor for is going to keep growing. So here is a map of pyrethroid exceedances from 2024. Some of these sites had more than one exceedance. We just took the highest value. So you can see each of these dots represents an exceedance, and then zooming in to this area, you can see again, each of these dots is where we found an exceedance. The bigger the dot, the bigger the exceedance. So you can see we had a few that were pretty big last year. So how are pyrethroids and really any kind of pesticides or chemicals getting into the waterways? This isn't anything that you don't already know. It's either coming from runoff or spray drift. Runoff is not really as common anymore, so it's probably mostly spray drift is what we're seeing. So just a few friendly reminders. Again, I'm sure this isn't anything that you don't already know, but be careful about doing perimeter sprays on hard surfaces. Be careful about applying near bodies of water, especially anywhere where there's a drain, a storm drain, or close to the water. Avoid runoff as much as you can. Only apply what you need when you need. And be careful about applications during the rainy season. We'd hate to see whatever you just apply get washed away. So I want to leave you on a little bit of a positive note in that we are seeing a lot of exceedances. And again, these are really, really small quantities, which means that a small shift in a practice could have really big effects. So we do have the opportunity to mitigate this problem and to help make the water quality better with just some very small shifts in management practices, especially if you are along the waterway.